this is definitely much more of a mainstream topic than I normally cover on this channel. I usually do a lot of the nitty-gritty tales that not that many people are aware of, but I mean, with this genre of ASMR, of content creation, you do get a lot of repeats, but I have not seen this story really told widely in the ASMR world, so I'm very excited to have gotten everything together for you guys today. Obviously on my channel, I seem to like the theme of millionaires, filthy rich, the insane things that they can do, and the ways that they can control the narrative. And this story, my God, it's just the epitome of all of that and more. So I cannot wait to dive in with this story for you today. But disclaimer, writing this almost killed me. This was the most painful thing to gather together, and I don't just read from a article on Wikipedia or something. I will go to multiple outlets and then create the timeline in a different way so that it's a bit more unique and so that I think it makes more sense from a viewer standpoint. So I am just saying, for this story, for all of the things that were very difficult to find, enjoy it. So let's do our classic intro and let's dive into this as you guys get yourselves nice and relaxed. Ease your mind. Forget about your troubles. Can't sleep. Neither can any of us watching this. Get nice and comfortable. Relax. Close your eyes. Grab yourselves a beverage. I just polished off this bottle, and I think with this story I'm gonna need a bit more glasses myself. Get a nice cold apple juice, some wine, tea, maybe some frosted Cheerios. We don't discriminate here. Also, if you're noticing a theme, make sure to leave a comment for next video. And let's dive into the world of Jeffrey Epstein. So, Jeffrey Epstein was born in Brooklyn, New York on January 20th in 1953. His father was a groundskeeper for the New York Department of Parks and Rec, and his mother worked part-time as a school aide. So I guess he was a little bit more humble than his later years, as him and his brother were born into a middle-class environment. Jeffrey attended the local public schools in the area, attended the National Music Camp at the Center for the Arts, and even began playing piano at the age of 5 years old. So Jeffrey was very gifted. Musically, his intelligence was crazy too. He's very smart. He'd actually skipped 2 grades and had graduated from high school at 16. Do you guys remember those kids walking around the halls that were way too young to be where they were, did not really fit in with anyone? We had several of those at my school. They were nice. Definitely got further in life than any of us. So Jeffrey was basically killing it and ended up enrolled at Cooper Union and later at New York University in the early 1970s. He'd actually never received any degrees while going to either of these schools, but that really didn't matter for him since he still got a job teaching calculus and physics at the East Side Prep School, Dalton. So a pretty decent first job. I mean, my first job was delivering newspapers, working at a senior's home. He was hired by Donald Barr, the headmaster, up until June of 1974. Now, just because he had an awesome job doesn't really mean much, since he was let go in June of 1976 for poor performance. There was really no other details explaining why or what his performance issues were, especially considering in all of his other careers he seems to excel at most things. I wonder maybe if he exhibited some inappropriate behavior towards the underage students, then was just let go. And Jeffrey's career like that just switched so dramatically. He went from teaching to banking. But again, he was a genius. So he had joined Bear Stearns in 1976 as a low-level junior assistant to a floor trader. But he moved up very quickly, working in the special products division. Here, he was advising the bank's wealthiest clients, billionaires, on tax mitigation strategies. Jeffrey was very praised for his skill with the wealthy clients and complex products, and only 4 years after joining Bear Stearns in 1980, they had made him a limited partner. However, only 1 year after making him a partner, he was asked to leave as he was found guilty of a Reg D violation. So he departed quite abruptly, but he always remained close with Alan and was actually a client himself of Bear Stearns until it collapsed in 2008. I tried to look up the layman's term version of what a Reg D violation was, and even in its layman term version so that I could understand, I didn't get it. It made no sense to me. So Jeffrey leaves, and in the year of 1981, he started up his own consulting firm called the Intercontinental Assets Group, or IAG. This company, he assisted clients in recovering stolen money from fraudulent brokers and lawyers. Jeffrey described his own work at the time as being a high-level bounty hunter, and would tell his friends that sometimes he would work as a consultant for governments and the very wealthy to recover embezzled funds, while other times he'd be on the side working for people who were embezzling the funds. So, moral compass, we already know he doesn't really have one anyway. He ended up recovering millions of dollars for some people, and he would even tell people at the time that he considered himself an intelligence agent. Yeah, I mean, he was recovering some high-level stuff for governments, but no. During the 80s, he'd even had a passport created with a false name stating that he was from Saudi Arabia, and a former senior White House official said that he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave him alone because Epstein was above his pay grade. So during this period of time, one of Epstein's clients was a Saudi Arabian businessman, and honestly, I will butcher his name. I will butcher it if I try, so wherever it is, this is his name. And this man was the middleman in transferring weapons from Israel to Iran. While working for him, Epstein would travel multiple times throughout the US, Europe, Southwest Asia, all over. And to be fair, from what his job is clearly a broad scope of work, but from what he assisted people with for such high-level access to the Victoria's Secret fashion shows. He'd help aspiring young models wanting to work for Victoria's Secret. Can already see how that's maybe not great. And he would even host models coming in and out of his hotel room. So anyway, you know the name Jeffrey Epstein. You know where this will go at some point. So his business kept growing. He'd changed its name to the Financial Trust Company, and he based them out of the Virginia Islands for tax purposes. I think he saved like 95% or something outrageous. Now, here's the thing. Epstein was a crook. He was a genius. He was ruthless and incredibly wealthy for the many, many work and different avenues of work that he had. And although people seem to be confused at where exactly he got all of the money that he did have, it was clear man was busy. I could go through every line of work for you. His media activities trying to buy New York Magazine, his presidency of the liquid funding that was 40% owned by Bear Stearns and actually led to the collapse of Bear Stearns in 2008. His hedge funds where he'd invest hundreds of millions of dollars went through federal investigations. But there's your summary. Actually, there you go. There's a lot to it, but I figured we'd just give you the background story of his connection so you can see that he not only had his own power, but through his work he had such power amongst who he was with and such control, and he was a very, very powerful man. I don't know any other word for it. So with all of his success, he led a very lavish lifestyle, and he was popular amongst most politicians, celebrities, a very high-profile crowd. He'd owned an apartment in Paris, a $2.5 million home in Palm Beach. It's beautiful. A 7,500-acre ranch in New Mexico, and the largest mansion in the Upper East Side of New York, a career in painting and in art. On her graduation day, they had all of their paintings out for sale in a gallery, which her pieces featured showed girls in very vulnerable positions. Maria was thrilled because all of her art pieces had sold, but she was told that she could not sell them to the buyers who had came in and purchased them because an important beneficiary of the gallery wanted to buy them instead, and she had to go and tell the previous buyers, no, sorry, you're not getting these, and she was gonna get less money from them as well. So like, it sucks for Maria. So of course the beneficiary was Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. He was very interested and it was such an honor to sell to him. But although it was unfortunate, Jeffrey a few months later had actually reached out to her and offered her a job. Maria had ended up managing the entrance to his Upper East Side townhouse. She often would see young women come to the home to model for Victoria's Secret, to come in for auditions for those who were interested in becoming an angel. And as Maria was kind of new, Jeffrey was very good at grooming his employees and women. He'd ask Maria about her family, if she had any siblings, and he even said that he would be interested in helping her younger siblings out. He said that for her young sister Annie to help build her resume and give her good experience, she should go on a trip to Thailand or Vietnam. Jeffrey said he would love to meet her and that he would pay for this elaborate, amazing trip for her younger sister. So Maria is thrilled, of course, and her younger sister Annie was ecstatic and had flew to New Mexico to meet Jeffrey on his ranch to get prepped for the trip that he thought would include other traveling students. But no, when she got to New Mexico, it was just her there. Just her and Jeffrey and Jeffrey's girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. So Jeffrey, Maxwell, and Annie had made their way to the New Mexico ranch and decided to give her a tour of the honestly very impressive property. While they were showing her around, they'd stopped at the spa area and said, "Wait, have you ever had a massage before?" To which her sister had not. And it became this weird, amazing, cool thing. Oh, you're gonna get a massage. This is so awesome for you. Like, you should be thrilled. And here of all places, wow, Maxwell was the one that was going to give her a massage. And she had Annie take off all of her clothes. Not that weird yet, right? So she had her lay on her back, and her breasts were just out. She was not covered, and Jeffrey could see and was watching her. He was watching Maxwell massage her breasts in front of him. I have been to Thailand before. They're just in a ranch in New Mexico, but I've been to Thailand before, and that's just actually a part of what they do. It's quite lovely, but I mean, this is clearly very inappropriate. But anyway, throughout the weekend, Jeffrey had one day came into her bedroom and said he wanted to cuddle. He'd crawled into her bed with her and started touching her, and she kind of just laid there shocked. Couldn't remember how long time had really passed before she'd made the excuse to go to the bathroom. She'd locked herself in and was terrified. Afterwards, she never told anyone. She was kind of ashamed, I believe, and she just wanted to focus on her Thailand trip, which he did send her to. She had an amazing time. But during Annie's trip, Jeffrey had phoned Maria, and in the summer of 1996, Maria had stayed at an Epstein estate in Ohio that was Lex Wexner's home, and he'd offered her to stay there so that she could focus on painting, and she'd set up shop. She drove out there in a truck with all of her supplies, and she painted photos of them in very vulnerable, intimate, private moments that she had with her. One night, Epstein and Maxwell had visited her, and things unfortunately did get weird. After painting all day, she'd went to see Jeffrey and Maxwell, and he'd asked for a foot massage. She did, and Maxwell had joined her, and Jeffrey kind of patted on the bed and said, "Come watch TV with me." So the two jumped in the bed with Jeffrey, and as she decided to sit down, they began aggressively groping her. They sat there and said, "You're okay, it's fine, this is great." And after a bit, she sort of propelled herself up. She'd barricaded herself into a room on the other side of the house. And once they'd left the following morning, she'd went to check for the photos of her sisters and found that they were taken. She'd called Annie and asked if anything had happened to her when she was with them previously. So the following day, Jeffrey called and said, "I had a great time last night. That was so fun." And she was like, "Nuh-uh, I hated that." And he instantly just started offering her money, asking her what she wanted, what he could do, but she just ignored him. And as soon as she got home from Ohio, she went straight to the New York Police Department. The only issue is everything had happened in Ohio, so it was outside of their jurisdiction. So the only thing she could do was go straight to the FBI, which she did. No shame in her game. And honestly, it is so hard for women to go forward to, because I find anytime anything like this happens, women get this thing in their head where they question themselves, they doubt it. Maybe no one will believe me. Maybe they'll think that I instigated something. Maybe I gave the person the wrong impression, because women tend to kind of blame themselves. So kudos to Maria for being like, "No way," and going. She told the FBI everything. They'd made her very comfortable, and they'd made it clear that they really believed her, but in the end, she had never heard back. And these two were the first women of many, way later on though, to ever put in a police complaint or call the police against Jeffrey Epstein, and that was in 1996. So they had talked to Vicky from Vanity Fair about this entire incident, and they were definitely, I think, nervous because they'd been screwed over by the FBI. People had really ignored their story, so it was a lot for them to tell their story yet again. And Vanity Fair took in their story, but they had to fact check everything with Jeffrey as well. Jeffrey had came back with his own story, saying that the women were obsessed with him, that they were in love with him and trying to get revenge because he didn't share the same feelings. It actually ended up threatening the journalist Vicky, who was pregnant at the time, asking her where she'd be giving birth, and saying that he knew every doctor in the city and that he would find out where she was and have a witch doctor put a curse on her baby. Suddenly, out of nowhere, her editor comes to her and says, "Take the girls out of the story." A new article is called "The Talented Mr. Epstein." Just highlighted how amazing this cool bachelor was, and the excuse was it was a business story. But they were definitely bought out or something. Or threatened, as Vicky was. There's no way that was just okay to do, especially to those two girls who finally came out again. Like, really? But these girls were just a scratch on the surface. So the Palm Beach police would receive donations from Jeffrey Epstein, quite often $100,000 here and there for new equipment. He would check on them, and they absolutely loved him. But in 2001, they received a call, Jeffrey's neighbor, saying there was a crowd of young women always going in and out of Jeffrey's home. The police did go and check this out, but once they'd arrived, everyone was 18, everyone checked address and give this old man a massage. He'll give you like $200 or $300. And it's so easy. Yeah, it does sound easy, Rachel, because you're lying. Once they were lured there, he would lie down, show them where the lotions were, and let them massage him a bit. He would then kind of turn to look at them and compliment them. Oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, wow, you're so incredible at this. And as a younger girl, they were, of course, flattered. He would then take off his towel, roll over, and please himself in front of the girls. He would try to touch them. Would say that once he took off his towel, they would have to take their clothes off as well. And sometimes he'd make them pinch his nipples, and after one or two more times, he would sleep with them. Now, sometimes he would do it right away, but for the most story, it's a bit of a very minor, gradual thing that he would do. After this would happen, he would point to where the money was and then outrageously compliment them. That was so amazing. You're so incredible. Please come back. You're just so amazing. It's very uncomfortable. The FBI was contacted and a 13-month investigation had started. After interviewing 5 victims, they'd realized the list was endless, like I'd said. With each person, more and more girls would be connected. Some would want to talk, others would not want to comment at all. They wanted to forget things, and some would actually tell investigators of a different service that was provided. Some of the girls that this had happened to had started freaking out, essentially, when Jeffrey would do this. I know I would. And they would start crying or trying to run away, which Jeffrey would offer them an alternative. He would say, it's okay, you don't have to, but if you can bring me a girl or one of your friends who will, I'll pay you the same amount of money. So he essentially was getting them to solicit prostitutes to him, in a way. And for a young girl who's in this scary scenario and maybe needs money and is vulnerable, great, I can just go and ask my friend. So that is how those girls would refer their friends. They wouldn't have to do anything, and they would still get the exact same amount of money. So this is how Jeffrey had his own weird version of a pyramid scheme of underage girls coming to him, essentially, by having them kind of do the work for him. But he also had other ways to do this as well. He would groom them by getting them to come in for Victoria's Secret auditions, students that he would chat with who he knew needed some money, and also he would prey on young girls who he knew were vulnerable, in need of money, insecure, or came from terrible conditions. There was one of the survivors who had said that around the time she'd met Jeffrey, it was maybe 5 or 6 years after she had witnessed her parents kill her brother in front of her and was living in foster homes for a while. So he knew the type of girls that probably would see his lifestyle and never have dreamed such a thing, to be associated to someone like that. But also, he did have Ghislaine Maxwell recruit his underage girls for him. Allegedly, she denies everything. But a lot of the survivors do say that she played a big role in this. She would groom the underage girls. She would even join them at times sexually. And if any of the girls tried to escape, she would go from recruiter to the muscle. So she would be the one stalking the girls, calling them at crazy hours, knowing exactly where they were and threatening them. You can't tell anyone this because I'll ruin your life. Oh, I see you're going to apply at this job. I'm going to call ahead of time and make sure you don't get it. She was psycho. Allegedly. So the web that the police were watching over grow and grow into this pyramid scheme of sex trafficking. It still goes on, and I'm sure we'll never know exactly if these were the only things that had happened, but as previously mentioned, Pedophile Island was a place that when Jeffrey had big sex trafficking party and abuse these women. Some women didn't even know where they were going or what would happen, and would end up having to basically sleep with all of these men that were presented to them because there was nowhere to go. I know of one survivor who said she was there for a weekend and felt so suicidal she ran to the edge of a cliff, and Jeffrey was there to stop her and save her and essentially throw her right back in the ring again. Just gross. So it's pretty messed up that all of these people were doing such crazy, illegal, inappropriate things for so long. But one other weird thing about the island specifically was that there was this really weird temple there that some people say maybe was a gym, maybe was where Jeffrey's piano was that he would practice on, but it had a bar on the outside of it, kind of like what you see on a castle door to keep it so that intruders can't come in, but on the outside. So is the beat that sick? Like, is the piano gonna run out? What are you having in there that you can't have come out? Like I said, from all that we have found now, it's really messed up just thinking what might come out in 10 or 20 years because it's already insane. Anyway, the flight list of the people that were on the island is also quite intense. However, there are some stories that still don't really match others. Bill Clinton says he's never been on the island, but that he's used Jeffrey's plane quite a bit, which I know quite a bit of celebrities have, that girls have said were never involved in anything. They simply were just using the plane to travel to somewhere else, or if they did stay on the island, there were people that wouldn't partake in the activities. But there was a lot of people who came out and also said, no, it's all, no one's stories really match on that exactly, so a bit harder to actually truly determine certain things. But 3 girls, I believe it was 3, claimed that Prince Andrews, the son of the Queen Elizabeth, had abused them multiple times on multiple occasions while he was on the island. Woody Allen is on the list as well as Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey. And those last 2, like, we know that that's probably very true. Generally speaking, Jeffrey did have most of his friends pay to be a part of this trafficking gang, I suppose. But those listed to have been potentially, and again, potentially involved were Donald Trump, based off of their friendships and remarks that he'd said very positive things of him, and based off of a young 12-year-old girl accusing him of raping her at an Epstein party. But in addition, the others on the list were Bill Clinton, Woody Allen, Prince Andrews, Leslie Wexner, many, many more. Now, when police had searched Jeffrey's home, they had found a lot of incriminating evidence against him. High school transcripts from some of the girls that were there. Multiple suggestive photos of underage girls. Hidden cameras everywhere. And after the 13-month investigation, 34 confirmed victims were found. So in May all over again. And on July 6th of 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and charged with several counts of sex trafficking and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. He pled not guilty, and if he was found guilty, he would be faced with 45 years, which at that age, I think he was in his late 50s, early 60s, he'd be spending his entire life in prison. They'd actually raided his home and found over 1,000 photos of underage girls, $700,000 in cash, diamonds, fraudulent passports, and apparently a blow-up doll hanging from a chandelier. And on July 8th of 2019, prosecutors did charge him with sex trafficking and conspiracy to traffic minors. Yeah. So Jeffrey was being held with no bond and was awaiting a trial date. However, on July 23rd of 2019, Jeffrey had been found injured in his cell at 1:30 in the morning. He was found with marks on his neck, similar to one trying to self-harm to commit suicide. And his cellmate was a previous NYPD officer who had been charged with 4 counts of murder and was being questioned for involvement, but he was not involved in this. So although Jeffrey did survive, he had no recollection of what had happened whatsoever. He was then placed on suicide watch. So he was there for about 6 days until he was transferred to a special housing unit. In those areas, the guards have a protocol to check on them every 30 minutes. On the night of August 9th, Jeffrey's cellmate was moved and he was left alone. Generally, they would replace that bunk with someone else, but he was left alone. The guards had fallen asleep at night as well for 3 hours and then had falsified the records and the 2 cameras that were facing his cell, and no one knows why, stopped working that night. Coincidence. At 6:30 a.m. on August 10th, Jeffrey was found dead in his cell. Emergency responders had taken him to the hospital, but were unable to save him. An autopsy had shown that he had multiple breaks in his neck, but had a break in his hyoid bone, which can, yes, it can occur when you hang yourself, but is often found from strangulations. So that's interesting. His death was ruled a suicide on August 16th, so 6 days later. But the controversy surrounding this is insane. I mean, I've literally seen people just make hour-long videos of people going, Epstein didn't kill himself. Epstein didn't kill himself. It's a thing. There was a lot of speculation of foul play that was involved, and his defense team was furious that a suicide was deemed so quickly. The Department of Justice, Inspector General, and FBI were ordered by the Attorney General Barr to investigate. And upon their investigation, they'd realized that not only did the guards falsify their records to not sort of get themselves in trouble, but they weren't gone for 3 hours. They were gone for 8. Just insane. guys made it